Good evening. This is Kelly Miners, and I am going to talk about my concept analysis. The concept that I wanted to look at was critical thinking. Being in the ICU for as long as I've been, this has been a very good skill to learn. And I think sometimes when new students are coming out of school and getting into the hospital setting, they have a hard time with this. So the definitions that the incidents are life knowledge and formal knowledge. So life knowledge is just knowledge that you kind of gained along the way of being alive, and formal knowledge would be any kind of formal education or anything that you've acquired that way. The definitions that I chose were that critical thinking is a term used by educators to describe forms of learning, thought, and analysis that go beyond the memorization and recall of information and facts. So that was kind of a more formal definition. The Oxford Dictionary says that critical thinking is the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. And I also like this definition of critical thinking as the awakening of intellect to the study of itself. This is one of my favorite definitions because I think that really explains what critical thinking can do. And also, the last definition that I chose was from John Dewey, and he was from 1910, and he described it as an active, persistent, and careful consideration of any belief or supposed form of knowledge in the light of the grounds that support it and further conclusions to which it tends. That one's a little bit more of a complex definition, but looking at all these different definitions, I feel like it really gives you a good understanding of critical thinking. And that's how I formed my own. That critical thinking is the ability to analyze actions or data. Once information has been analyzed, one forms their own independent conclusions. The example that I used is when the bedside nurse is looking at her patient's lab and vital signs, urine output, diagnosis, and history. So the nurse is analyzing all of that data and trying to put everything together. And she's getting all of her information together. And then when the physician team's around, she asks about something like digitalis toxicity. So she looked at the labs, she looked at the creatinine, she looked at everything else, realized that the patient was on DIG, that their heart rate was slowing down a fair amount, and was wondering if they were actually processing this DIG and if the patient had DIG toxicity. The physicians listened to her. The conclusion and analysis were created from this data, and she used all the things that she used for her formal education, her life knowledge, all of the data that they collected from the patient, and putting it together to critically analyze and bring up a good point during rounds. The patient did indeed have toxicity. The physician stopped the medication, and the patient did a lot better. So the consequences from putting all this together would be independent conclusions and the ability to have knowledge analysis and conclusion. Thank you very much.